Thank you for tuning. Today we have Danielle with us. Danielle, say hi to the people.
Well, hello. I'm happy to be here.
Always a perfect day. I appreciate your time today. We're gonna go straight into it because what we're looking to talk about today is this term called mental fitness and how it can unlock our potential to build sustainable communities. Give us a high level overview of the peace of mind, the confidence, the empowerment that comes with the breakthrough that you refer to as mental fitness.
Yeah, I didn't like the term mental health because it seems to have a stigma. So I came up with the term mental fitness, and I have a program, mental fitness training. Many people don't know that there are very easy ways to change your mindset. You can do it like on a dime. And what I tell my clients or my students is that it's not the stress, the worry, the anxiety that's really bad, is that we don't cleanse them. It's
Mhm.
like if you don't brush your teeth for several days, you're going to accumulate toxins. It's the same with the mind, the brain. But there are easy tools, just like a toothbrush, that you can use to cleanse your mind and stay mentally fit. Right now, we have like 5 people an hour that are committing suicide. We have 33% of people who suffer from depression, 28% suffer from anxiety. But there are ways, easy ways, to use mental tools to get rid of those.
Right. So what you're doing is you're helping individuals enhance and maintain their mental well-being, and then you're combining that even on the what you with the hypno coach situation, to leverage the power of hypnosis to tap into subconscious mind as well, right?
Yeah, absolutely. With my private clients, they come to me because they have been traumatized by some events, rape, domestic violence, veterans, and I have tools to help them remove the imprint of that trauma. And then I give them the tools so they can survive on a day by day and hopefully thrive.
Right. So one of those um one of those things, right, is stress management. Because when you said trauma, we're talking about that could lead to PTSD at the workplace, post traumatic stress disorder, but also you're helping them release past fears, grief, regret, old pain, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And
You know,
anxiety. So yeah, speak about the stress management part.
well, let's talk about pain. A lot of people are in pain. And to me, there are two different types of brain that are in our brain. There's some pain that's acute, like you break a leg, you need to go to the hospital, you need to take care of it. You have a toothache, you need to go to the dentist. But then pain can also be lingering. Like if you've had an accident, you had a surgery, you go through the physical therapy, you even go see a chiropractor, and the pain lingers. Well, there's some place in your brain that that pain is located to remind you not do that again. So that's a type of pain, and a lot of chronic pains are in that domain that we can get rid of the remnants. Like I have an example that comes to mind. I had a woman who was had a car accident, had her shoulder injured. She went through surgery. She went through physical therapy. Her shoulder was still hurting. The doctors didn't know what to do.
Hmm.
And through my process, we realized that she had been shocked by, I don't remember if it was the light or the brakes of the ambulance that was arriving. And for some reason, it's called a vector of energy, got located in her shoulder. And when we removed that, then her shoulder pain went away.
Wow. So so that's like okay, so that's like the body creating the equivalent of a, a customer rewards program at a company where like the company uses the loyalty program to leverage the principles of positive reinforcement, right? So that stored pain is kind of like the example of an airlines or a credit card company using like the benefit of the pain to remind you not to be in that position again.
Yeah, it's our body mind always wants to be healthy and to protect us. So there is a positive intention behind that pain, and most people don't realize that. And if you suffer from chronic pain for a long time, it's usually an accumulation of
Mhm.
different things. So we can get rid of one after the other.
So that's brings us into like goal setting, right? Because now you're helping clients set realistic and meaningful goals. And for example, if they want to get rid of the pain, that's a way, that's a goal, so to speak, that one may have in their life. So how could you use hypnosis to enhance the focus and concentration to make that transition easier and for individuals to visualize their and internalize their goals?
I do different kind of hypnosis. What I love to do is interactive guided imagery. People go in a very light trance, and then we talk to the pain, and we have a dialogue. Why are you there? Why are you still
Mm.
there? What can I do so I don't have to have that pain? And we dialogue, and often in just one session, we can get rid of a lot of the pain. When we get to the core, is it why is that pain still there? What is it trying to tell me? And I love to do a dialogue. Yes, there is hypnosis where I can command the brain to stop the pain, but often that doesn't last for a very long time. It lasts when you know and you remove the problem.
Right. Don't treat the symptoms. Go back and treat the actual cause.
Yes,
So now with emotional intelligence, you can coach people on like regulating their emotions as well, which I think is going to be critical in the change from uh, to a sustainable community, because so much has been built on transactional leadership, and they're embedded in their minds like we're going to do this the same way we've been doing it for 20 years, blah 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 blah. So this may actually help in that transition to transformative leadership, because we can actually improve the interpersonal relationships through your emotional intelligence factoring and training, right?
absolutely. I believe we have a lot of hate going on. And to me, it's because people haven't dealt with their own problem and they don't know about it. It's subconscious and they just projecting it on other people. So once we get to it, then people get along much better. That's my hope anyway.
Yeah, yeah. And a great book on that is Power versus Force by Dr. David Hawkins.
Yep.
And so we got this graph here where they've calibrated human emotions and everything. I think projection ties into this because the projection is made and then they have an emotion stimulation from that, and they may or may not know how to control that or how to respond to that. And you got, like you said, there's a lot of hate, and then hate comes from like a lot of this area down here: anger, fear, desire, shame. All that can turn into hate really easy. So when you get triggered by that, the goal is to, again, with the emotional intelligence, know what it is, observe it, and then make a difference in your life to climb up to joy, peace, and enlightenment eventually. And once one reaches enlightenment, it's not that you don't. If someone step on your foot, the pain hit, you might be angered for a second, right? But that means you could be dealing with both at the same time. So how do you help people navigate their buoyancy factor um, as it comes to this graph, so to speak?
Well, I would say people who are under 200, it's difficult to work with these people because they are very reactive. And I started in 95 in a brick and mortar practice in California, working more with food and lifestyle. And I kind of put that aside and work more with the mind. And I'm coming back to food because it seems a lot of the people who are under 200
Mm.
don't have the nutrients that they need to have a healthy brain. So they react. And it's difficult when people react to teach them new things. They need to have the nutrient for their brain, so have healthy foods. And then I can teach them different techniques. And yes, like you said, when you're in enlightenment, it may still hurt when somebody step on your toes, but it's not going to last very long. You're going to know how to just dispel that emotional upheaval.
Right.
You don't have to stay upset about it.
Yeah, and the acknowledgement factor of where you're at the moment, what the realization of how you got there. Oh, someone stepped on my foot. Okay, it's not the end of the world. You don't gotta, kill someone over that, right? So when it comes down to like concerns and control and influence, we got behavioral advertising. So like companies are actually targeting, you know, advertising strategies based on psychological profiling. right, to influence consumer behavior. So now when we go back to emotional intelligence, it's important to know if your thoughts, feelings, and emotions are yours. How does that work with your client relationship?
Well, I think we all have what we call different part or ego states, and we have to have the right ego state in place for dealing with something. You know, I heard a mother one time. She had several children and spent her time taking care of her children. She had to cut their food so they can eat little pieces. And she found herself at a business meeting, and automatically she was thinking about her children. She was in her mother's role. She turned and started cutting, food for the CEO that was on her side.
Mm.
That's being at the wrong ego state or parts or personality at the wrong time. So there's different ways to put ourselves where we should be. So I teach people different techniques for that, and also not to project problems or see why they have the problem. I had a businessman who built a business and then stagnated, and built another business, stagnating. And what we figured out was he was ashamed of an addiction he had. And he was punishing himself unconsciously on his business because of that addiction.
Mm.
So he either had to give up the addiction or find another way to feel about it.
And then
And
how did you go about applying the positive psychology for to shift to a
well, I
positive
use a
mindset?
lot of what's called the tapping technique, emotional freedom technique, to remove the blockage. And that's pretty quick. It's tapping on different acupuncture points. We know that the meridians hold onto emotions. So we can just dissolve that hold there and let things circulate. And he's doing very good right now.
Okay. How do you feel about social media when it comes to your realm and the effects that it has on your clients, either directly or indirectly?
Well, I did a short YouTube video showing a knife. You can use a knife to cut vegetables or to murder somebody. And I
Hmm.
think it's the same with social media. What are you using it for? If it becomes an addiction where you can't do without, where you don't talk with live people any longer, then maybe you need a rethink about social media. And are you taking things that are positive? Social media, a lot of time, especially for young girls, they see images that they will never be able to emulate. Or, young guys too, you have the superhero that they will never be. So it's discouraging. What are
Hmm.
you doing on social media?
Right.
It's more, how are you using social media? Is it for your benefit to empower you, or is it destroying your life and your relationships?
I think that's a great point because like one of the things that book talks about, the power versus force, is desire forms every addiction. So when you're craving a certain type of movie or a certain type of, like you said, content online, what addiction is that formulating or forming in the individual, right?
Yeah, to me, an addiction, and in my world, we talk more about habit. An addiction is very ingrained habit. So you're triggered by something or primed by something, and your brain automatically goes in a certain direction. What you need to do is, as soon as you trigger, is put a stop to that, like a roadblock.
Hmm.
Allow your brain to find a different way rather than, hit the food, the alcohol, the cigarette, the drug, or social media. What other way can you uh, take care of that problem, that trigger, until the trigger is gone? So there's two ways to work at it. You put a roadblock on it, and then you neutralize it, the trigger.
So speaking of roadblocks, and thank you for sharing that. What what do you think um causes people to stall when they reach challenges and setbacks in their journey in life? How do you help them navigate with that? I know it's not a one size fit all thing, but talk about that from your perspective, high level overview.
First of all, people have become aware that they have a problem, a trigger that they're stalling. Unless you're aware that you're an alcoholic, you're not going to do anything. So
Mm.
the awareness comes first. Then are you willing to do something about it? And then you need the tools and techniques, and that's where I come in. But that's not enough. You also have to take some actions, and then you get results, you get success, and you move on with your life.
I think that's great because when you use the word awareness, it made me think of the acceptance here. And like you said, that's above 200. So you have to go through willingness to accept so that you can then get to the reasoning behind it.
Yeah, you have to be aware that you have a problem, first of all, and usually other people see that you have a problem. Then you have to accept that you have a problem and decide whether you want to keep the problem or you're willing to do something. And that's where coaches and psychologists or hypnotists come in the play.
So these changes that you're helping people make on a personal level is difficult enough, right? Because you have a great science that you know what you're doing, but there's a challenge in getting them to again accept it and implement it in their own life sometimes. Um, what happens when we try to scale this up to community level and shift the mindset of like an entire community from what's been damaging it in the past to hey, let's do something different so we can elevate together.
I was teaching a workshop last week to a group of people. We had 35 people, I believe. And I think it's actually maybe easier to change when you have a group because people
Mm.
in the group will see that you're going the wrong path and can tell you do something. I taught the tapping techniques to my children, and when I was in a bad mood, they all got together and say, "Mom, tap." Oh, okay. But it's not that difficult to change because it's just rewiring your brain to do something different. People are afraid that oh it's gonna it's gonna be painful, it's gonna take me months. It doesn't. Sometimes it just takes a few minutes. One of
Mm.
the technique I was giving, and that can be used when you have people you're working with, is when you go into a tangent where you are thinking negatively or in a disempowered manner. You want to take a ball or your bottle of water and pass it on. So you can do that as a team. Say, oh, you are, gently saying, yeah, maybe you having a disempowered thought. Let's take a bottle, okay? And that helps to dissolve the thought. And if you do that enough, the roadblock is going to be there and your brain's going to go another way. And as you do it, it's not difficult, is it? It's not going to take months. Your brain's going to make other connection, other neuron, and you're going to start reacting differently.
Right. So there's a level of communication skills needed, um, both with oneself and with the people around you, in the sense of maybe we're looking to change the community.
Yeah, if you
And
have a group of people that are willing, again, the community has to realize there is a problem. And okay, are we willing to solve that problem? Now, what are we going to use for tools and strategies? And when I started in psychology, we did, 7 years on a psychoanalyst couch. Who has 7 years to change?
mm,
And then it was, maybe 6 weeks. And now we can often do it in 1 hour. And then, keep
amazing.
implementing.
That's amazing. And when you were talking about the group thing being easier, it it popped in my mind. Um, that study where like they would put like, let's say there was 3 people, 4 people, whatever. So all the people except for the one would be like actors in the
Yes.
process, and they would have them like they would say which line is longer, and they would purposely pick like the wrong one, and the real person in there that didn't know what was going on would be like, no, it's C, and then they would change their answer to fit in with the group. So, do you think that that's been the case on the negative side? That's got the current state of like the economy and the poor behaviors in the community that leading us down the wrong path as a whole economy crash, politics, whatever. And do you think that that could also be part of why it may be easier in the group to get people to when we shift back to positive?
Yeah, I was more thinking about business group. Generally, I'm reading a book right now about food and behavior
Hmm.
and how much if we change the food that delinquents are eating, they become normal, very nice people. and they don't go back in jail. The jails or the prisons that have implemented food programs as well as therapeutic approach have a much higher rate of success, and people don't come back to prison. They get up to have normal lives. Once the brain is nourished properly, it's much easier. So, you know, I'm very encouraged because many communities and even poor communities are starting to have a garden. Community plots and garden have fresh foods and vegetables. And first of all, that draws a community together. And then they have good food that is nourishing to their body and their mind, to their brain. And it's important because if your brain is missing some ingredients, you're not going to be able to think straight. And you become, angry easier, and you tend to react. And sometimes we don't understand the behaviors of delinquents and people who are in prison, and just changing the food that they eat changes their approach to life and their way of reacting. So I have both approach. I started with nutrition when I was 15 because I was diagnosed with cancer, and I was studying psychology. So always a foot in both sides, the psyche and the body. I think they work together.
That makes sense because you mentioned the nourishment, the malnourishment effects earlier, and you can go as far down extreme with that to say, hey, you get into too far down the wrong food, you're eating stuff that contains the parasites. The parasites actually take control of the body to feed their habits so they can survive and thrive, which may help kill or control, alter the brain in some way, shape, or form. So you bring up a great point there where basically self-care practices is going to become important because the community is across the board starting to realize the food is weaponized against us on various levels. Even vegan ain't safe no more because it's processed. So ultimately, all of these steps are going to lead to performance enhancements on a mental level. So mental performance enhancements, right? What does it look like? What are some of the success stories and the positive feedback you get after someone that experiences that for the first time, that before and after in real life for them?
Just come to mind one of my first client. We were talking about nutrition, and she was telling me all the good stuff that she was eating. Then she came back the next week, and she told me that's what I wanted to eat, but I went home and I opened my cupboards. That's not what's in there. So she had to become aware, and then she threw everything away. She changed her habits. She learned different ways of dealing with her mind. And she was in her 30s, still living with her mom. She went on her own, made a record, and's been touring and singing in the United States.
Wow. There you go. Empowering initiatives. So education and skill development, um, that's important because you're going to educate them and then develop skills from them to cope with it. It's going to help their mental health. And all of that can lead to basically community development projects, local growth and collective like resource wise as well. So you play a vital role in your concepts in healing the community so that we can thrive in the future. And you do private and group consults, workshops, webinars, right? And you speak
Yes,
English and French, right?
I French and English, yes.
There you go. So what is something that you would like to see in the near future become more popular?
I think I'd like every school to have their own garden, because that's going to impact children's brain, and many children don't get good food. But if you have gardens, reminding a story I read about a school, they had a lot of destruction. The students would just break windows, break walls, and it cost a lot. And they put a salad bar for lunch, and that year they recovered all the expenditure for the salad bar. There was no more broken windows, broken walls, etc.,
Hmm.
because children were eating better. And it's been seen in prisons too. So I'd like the prisons to have gardens. Why don't we have the prisoners learn about food, gardening? I'd like to see that in schools, and also have school program with children to teach them to deal with their emotions. Instead of being angry and punching somebody, what do you do when you're angry? And there are all kind of easy techniques. My kids, I said, a 5-year-old learn these techniques, and I don't say that they don't have any problems. They do. Everybody does on this planet. but they
Mhm.
know how to deal with it in a more empowering manner without being destructive.
Wow, so again, we arrived at the food when you mentioned the schools and you revisited the prisons there. Food is really important. Tell us about your how you got to hydroponics.
Well, I started with hydroponics. I was traveling and then I was in a trailer for a while helping my daughter. And I wanted to have gardens again. I had big gardens when I was in California. And for some reason, I came across that hydroponic. In Texas, it was not really possible where I was to have gardens outside. I didn't have the ability to have that. So I started hydroponics, and I think I started them in January. And from January, no, I started in December, and from January till October, I didn't have to buy any greens. I had my own organic greens out of hydroponics, and that's tiny little thing. Okay, I was in a trailer. I had four hydroponics that gave me all the greens that I could have. I had too much, so I was going to start with tomatoes and peppers and strawberries.
Mhm.
It's all kind of things. You cannot grow everything. Obviously, with hydroponics, you cannot grow a head of cabbage or cauliflower, but all the greens, and again, little tomatoes, peppers, eggplant, cucumbers, that all can be grown hydroponically.
Wow. So take bringing the garden inside and or hydroponics vertical gardens
Yeah.
actually could help not only your body health but your mental health.
Yes, I think nature is very important. I encourage all my clients to go into nature somewhere, even if it's eating lunch in a park, just be around nature. And if for some reason you can, then bring nature inside with plants. And hydroponic is great because you have the plants, you have nature, but you can also eat it.
Right. And all right, so now one thing, we're coming up on 30 minutes here. So one thing I want you to elaborate on for us that we were talking about before, I think would be great, is when it how did you say it? You said it costs more energy to be in the wrong place. And that's the power and the beauty about being in the right state of mind. Like people think about states as being a location on a map, but state is also like a state of mind, right?
It's just
So it
mine.
costs you more energy to be in the wrong places. So get in the right state of mind and look at how the corporate America is destroying lives because of the toxic workplaces that's producing same symptoms as post traumatic stress disorder. Give them a standpoint from your perspective, the value when they're looking at that scale of do I maintain this particular arena of cost of living or quality of life source for my family, or do I actually go out there for the longevity of life and joy and do something different if if the environment's not right.
Well, if the environment is not right, yes, it's better to go someplace where the environment is, but not everybody can. So in 2000, I was teaching goal setting workshops and goal
Mhm.
achievement. I was very good at that. And then I went through a divorce where I could not set a goal for the next day. I took a dental appointment and I had to go to court, and it happened several times. But I realized the one thing I could always do is set character goals. Whatever happens, I can ride the waves. Eventually, it will end and I'll be in a better place. Yes, eventually it did. And I learned a lot of these techniques because I wanted to keep my character in good shape. So wherever you find yourself, resilience is important. And there's all kind of tools and techniques that you can use to keep a good character and moving forward.
I like that because what you're saying is, hey, look, your goal may be out of reach due to some sort of resource, right? Whether it's time, money, this, that, and however, find something that you can still set as a goal, like a character goal that doesn't cost you anything, so that you can still maintain the habit of setting and achieving goals in a practice form, right?
Yeah, I realized a few months ago that I got very irritated with incompetence when I was going to the store. The cashier was in a very bad mood and was rude, and it used to bother me. And I came home and say, okay, what's the use of being bothered and irritated? That's
Mhm.
getting my immune system down. So I did some of these techniques, and now, yeah, again, okay, that's a person. She has a bad day, or there is an agenda because they want to go all to cashierless places. But I still go see the cashier and try to make her day a little better
Yeah.
and not get upset about it. So there's all kind of things. Realize what you're doing. Become aware of how you react. Is it empowering? Is it disempowering? Because if you get angry, irritated, it's going to impact your immune system. Do I want that?
Right. So we're in control of ourselves in that matter, and that's what you can do. And we can always learn from every experience. So, what's your any closing remarks, closing topics?
Closing remarks? Well, if you are aware, and a lot of people are aware, ask yourself whether you're willing to change or not. What's the cost of not changing versus what the cost of changing and have a better life? And, I have tools and techniques. Many people do. So reach out. We can't do everything on our own. We should be interactive, interdependent instead of independent.
There you go. That's community, and we're gonna have to get better at that practice so that we can be sustainable and get away from big
Yeah.
pharma and all that stuff. All right. Well, Daniel, I appreciate your time today.
No, I appreciate being here. Thank you.
All right. Say bye to the people.
Bye. And yeah, you can always reach me on my website if you want to continue the conversation.
Website scrolling down below there. Pasha Paroh, YN7. Thank you for tuning. Enjoy.